Good morning, everybody. John Delarose here, the author of For Steam and Country, Gravity of the Game, been in the MAGA 2020 anthology. Just finished up a short story that's going to be in Astounding Frontiers. I think it's going to come out in issue number 6. I don't know. Depends on them. I'm not in charge of the editing, but they have it. They like the story, so it's in now. And I'm working on the book 2 of my Baron von Monocle series, which is the sequel to For Steam and Country that came out earlier this year. Hopefully, going to make some good progress on that today, like I've done most days. I don't know if anybody's read my blog this morning, but my blog this morning was I was basically roasting a Tor.com article. I'm going to pull it up real quick. The Tor.com article. For those who aren't familiar with the science fiction and fantasy world, Tor.com is a science fiction fantasy commentary site. It's a subsidiary of the Tor Publishing Group, which is owned by Macmillan. They're big publishing. They pick writers who are extremely left and love to play in identity politics to go with the theme here. They co-opt about every sort of topic that they ever touch upon. It's co-opted by their identity politics. So I first really started paying a lot of attention to them when they did a hashtag Space Opera Week last year, and the hashtag they used was to promote their posts on their site, where they were just supposedly going to talk about space opera. Now, space opera is just about fun, epic wars with aliens. I mean, it's Star Wars, it's Lensman, it's Ringworld, it's that type of science fiction. It's really not a spot where politics should play much, or at least current affairs politics should play much into the content there. But they made every post about, well, why you should be reading women's science fiction and why you should be reading this. It was a super fun week. You were there. Both of us. I really don't know how to pronounce your name. I think it's Yakov. But both of us were posting different posts, and we stayed on topic with it and wrote beautiful essays. You wrote beautiful essays too. He's a great space opera writer. There he is. If you see his name on here, he's a good space opera writer. That's worth checking out too. So they turn that into identity politics, and here's the deal. So this morning, a reader showed me this article. It's called "It's Raining Men: Seeking Out Women Writers by the Numbers." So the guy went over. I don't know who he is. He's just a guy who writes on Tor.com, and he wrote this whole deal about how he, just based on the books he reviewed, prefers men to women in his reading habits. And then he went off just sort of self-flagellating himself for the rest of the article about how he needs to read more women and pay attention and have quotas based on what he reads. And I don't know what this guy's doing. I mean, it's a self-defeating sort of thing when a guy is publishing this, saying I need to have quotas to read less men authors. It's like, well, wait a minute, aren't you a man author? Like, why would you ever impose that upon yourself and recommend that readers do that as well? It's hurting your own career. It's totally nonsensical, but it is the identity politics reality of the publishing industry. The publishing industry, and like every industry, we're talking Hollywood, comics, everything, is trying very hard to force this. Well, we need more women, and you should read women. There was a woman YouTuber who challenged people to read non-male authors exclusively a year or so back, and she got, of course, thunderous applause from the establishment. But the truth of the matter is, it's like that because women run the publishing industry. They run every aspect of the publishing industry, from editorial to publishing, all the way up and now to mostly authors, all the way up and down the chain. Now, the only spot that wasn't the case for a while was science fiction and fantasy, and it's been very close for a number of decades. But now that tide is starting to really turn and shift toward a women's only club like the rest of publishing. And they're trying to push this hard. Now, the real reason they're trying to push this hard is because, again, they're just women running this. And it is identity politics at its core. It exists, right? So I posed, most men probably like to read men. And the reason a lot of people, men don't read for the most part these days. And it's because there's not a lot of content produced for men, right? Now, I pose this that, men mostly like to read authors. And of course, I've gotten a bit of flack and all that from the conservatives saying, it's more about style and like how the content's made. Well, this is true. But on the other front, as a male author, you're going to know what your tastes are and write towards men a little easier than most women are who know what women's tastes are and are going to more naturally write towards women. Now, you can come up with examples of either sex that are different and, of course, true. This is just an on average thing, and it makes sense. It's just like when I would rather go out and have a conversation, I'm typically, I'm gonna call a dude for the most part to go hang out at the bar with me and have a conversation. It's just part of life. But a lot of people got really offended by the identitarian aspects of it, and that's what it comes down to, is the conservative side, because the left wing is going to be offended no matter what. If you are a man, you're offensive to them. If you are white, you're offensive to them. It's too late on that front. The left wing is so far full tilt onto that, and they've been that way for decades. But it really got bad in 2008 when they were playing with the Rules for Radicals Saul Alinsky program in trying to divide up the country for the election purposes. That they've just gone on this escalating path. They're there. There's no pushing them back. They are way over the ledge, and it's happening. So the identity game is there, and I mean it's seen in this Tor.com article. It is saying you should quota your what you read. So if that's the case, if that's what the establishment publishing house says, then obviously they're already full tilt there. It exists. But the conservatives get upset because they want to say, well, we shouldn't play identity politics. And I agree. Identity politics dumps people down. If you start this whole thing, it creates a dumber readership, creates a dumber tribalism, which just escalates. And it's true. The problem is, it's also a reality. So as much as I like idealism, and as much as I like the idea of complete meritocracy, that doesn't exist, and it's impossible for that to exist. People don't just play based on meritocracy. Now, if you and there's lots of examples of this. I mean, you can look at any pop culture icon, you can look at any book in success, and there's a part of it is that people identify with the character in the book, the character in the movie, the writer of the movie, the writer of the book, whatever, and because they identify with it, they check out that author to begin with. You're not going to check out something to begin with just naturally. The whole blurb that you use on Amazon or whatnot to promote yourself is to try to trigger different things in people to psychologically get them to check out your book. People don't naturally know your book is great. There's no possible way for them to do that. And it may be great, it may be not. It doesn't matter. If you have an effective sales technique, that's all that matters. And you can evoke certain identities off of people, and this doesn't have to be political. So when I set out to market for Steam and Country, I played with the way I did things to appeal to Star Wars fans. If you identify as a Star Wars fan, you're probably going to like my book, right? It's not set in space or whatnot, but it has a very similar hero's journey to the Luke Skywalker sort of thing, and there's similar threads in there that I intentionally put in there so that a person who identifies as a Star Wars fan will necessarily gravitate towards my book more than they would have otherwise if I didn't intentionally put some of that stuff in there. So identities come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. They're not all male versus female, black versus white, whatever. But all that exists too, and because we're in a spot where that's so hot as a topic for our country right now, those things tend to supersede other things. People will stick with their family first, will play with their religion probably second, maybe first, and or second, around there, and then go with their race after that. And then go with their sex after that. It's just kind of how things work. Now, the women running the entertainment industry have been doing this for a long time, as I said. There's no meritocracy there. They you know, all of these magazines. I showed it earlier this month and a couple months ago that these magazines all prefer women. They say on their submissions guidelines, we prefer minorities and women and people who don't get published often. They claim it's people who don't get published often, but those are the people who only get published at this point because of the people who are in charge. It's all identity based. It's not quality based. I would love to have an Ayn Rand meritocracy where I roll into their little, you know, thing, and I see where everybody's working hard and producing the best, and whoever produced the best wins. It's beautiful idealism, right? And we all read Atlas Shrugged, and we all saw that, and we all saw how the dangers of identitarianism and all that, you know, what did they call it? It was really cronyism then, because there wasn't all as much of a hodgepodge identity makeup back then. But it's the same principle. But Ayn Rand showed that was evil, and she showed that meritocracy was good. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. There's nothing there. But that's also not the way the world works whatsoever. Okay, not at all. There's zero merit mattering to almost anything you produce, as long as you have the right marketing skill set, and that marketing skill set is identity politics these days. So if you know, when I write saying, you know, males are mostly going to like to read males, that is likely true. The reason that it's a correlation, not a causation, because I can't prove it. You can't prove people's motivations, and that's where people get hung up, because some people want to get this dialectic argument going on, saying, well, you need to have hard evidence that blah 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 blah. Well, you know, I mean, nobody's doing these studies, so there's no data on this sort of stuff. It just makes common sense, right? It's the same principle that if I want to talk to a guy and hang out, I typically want to hang out with a guy and talk. Most guys, I've had this happen to me. I mean, I wrote a female protagonist for my book, and I did this intentionally because, you know, the market says write female protagonists. And I've had plenty of people saying to me, I'd rather have a male protagonist. I don't really need another female protagonist. And it's guys saying this to me all the time, right? They want a male protagonist out of my work, and I don't have that, so they sometimes pass on reading it. That happens, and I'm not offended by that whatsoever. It's just a reality. You know, somebody wants to read what they identify with, because this is the world we live in at this point. So yeah, I think it does follow that male protagonists will appeal to male readers, and I think it does follow, not always. Again, you know, this is just on average. Like, I mean, I probably read more female authors than this guy who wrote this Tor.com article does. But on the flip side, there is a connect level on that. And yes, a female writer can write a good one, just like a male writer can write a good female protagonist. But it's going to be more natural, and it's going to be easier for a male writer to write a male protagonist and a female writer to write a female protagonist. And likewise, it follows that a male writer will appeal to males more because he understands them on a deeper level, and a female writer will appeal to females more. Now, you know, I get a lot of, you know, it's style. The style is what matters, and really the work and the style and the work ethic. All right. I mean, there's always exceptions, like I said, but in the marketing game, in the true reality of our world, it comes back to identity politics again. Nobody knows what your style is or what to look for until they see the first trigger of the marketing that gets them to buy the book in the first place. And they're going to more often than not buy that based on identity politics. So that's why I play. Right now, it is in the world of the media, in the world of entertainment. It is not okay to say you're a male. It's not okay to say you're pro-male. It's not okay to say that you're pro-white. It's not okay to say any of that stuff, right? All of these institutions come at you, and if you say anything like that, they'll just hit you so hard because it's terrible, horrible, right? And they've put such overwhelming social pressure on people on that one, it's made people who actually, you know, want to promote that level of identity politics be quiet about it. Two, it has put the conservative side saying, you know, maybe we shouldn't play that game so we can be respectable, right? I don't care about being respectable because the bottom line is it's already there. I'm a guy, and therefore the people who are in control of the establishment media are not going to buy my product or read my product anyway, just because of the fact that I'm male. That's 100% true. We've proved that at this point. So at this, I'm trying to galvanize a group of males who I think have tuned out of reading because the identity politics is so strong. I think I'm trying to galvanize that group into at least coming and checking things out again. Now that can only be a good thing because I think it's actually taking a subset of the market that was pushed out and doesn't exist anymore, and that's part of the steep sales decline that's going on. And we see this going on in comics too. I mentioned this the other day on my Twitter with Witchblade, where they've turned Witchblade into from an action demon adventure that was a total TNA sort of concept to an all-female creative team where it's a very realistic woman in a realistic environment, and not a ton looks like it's happening from the previews. Now that's fine. I'm fine with them creating their own content. The problem is taking content that was designed for a male fan base and shifting it to a female fan base and saying, well, the males aren't invited anymore. That's what we see in the industry, 100%. And it's across the board in comic books. It's across the board in sci-fi. You're not allowed to like what you like, and that's sad. So that's why I play in the game. I think it's working. I just from my own observations. And keep in mind, this is just an anecdotal deal. My own observations is it's working. Most people identify with me because they identify with me, and when I have the identity connection, that connection ends up stronger than just I like your work because you write nice prose connection, and so it's created a better, stronger following. So I think playing the identity politics game, you shouldn't be afraid of it. That's not to say my job here. On the flip side, I'm not here to knock. I'm not here to knock the other side so much, right? I don't hate women or nothing like that. I like women, but the problem is their side is framing everything a man does as toxic masculinity, right? So why don't we talk about garbage femininity? Right? We're not allowed to. Hashtag soy is a crime, okay? And we're going there, and it's trying to force men like this writer of this Tor.com article to become more feminine and to sit there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not here knocking that. Whatever. But it's trying to force men to become more feminine and that's the end game of this political environment that they're attempting to do. They're shaming men into not having positions in culture, not having positions in power, not having positions in business, and they're trying to make it a social thing, which, they're succeeding in doing that. And the only way to push back is to fight. You can't sit there with your principles and say, I refuse to fight, while somebody else is fighting, and you're going to get overrun. It's just how it is. So I'm fighting. It's working. It's building me a following. I'm not worried about it. I don't care one iota about respectability from the Tor.com establishment. They're never going to respect me anyway, and you shouldn't care about trying to gain their respect either. So if you want readers, I think identity politics is it, and I hope that more people come out there and make more products that are actually attempting to appeal to men, so that we can actually have equality. Thanks for tuning in. If you like my content, my books are pretty apolitical, and I don't play to identity politics so much in the books. But I do those subtle little things where, like I said, identity politics is at different levels. There's the male, female, blah, blah, blah. But I do play to little things like, if you're a Star Wars fan, if you're a Heinlein fan, those sorts of things are identities also. And it goes beyond just a physical look, the levels of identity. So a strong marketer will know how to look at that and know how to use that to reach a target audience. And that's all I'm trying to do. So check out For Steam & Country. I think you'll like it, even though it has a female protagonist. Even though it's steampunk, by the way. The other thing I get, because I went hard, because when you get into niche genre writing, here's another thing. Niche genre writing has niche genre identities within it, too. So you have space opera fans, you have military SF fans, you have horror fans, you have modern fantasy fans, etc. And I chose steampunk, which is a very, very niche genre. I mean, it's like, it's small. And a lot of people go, well, I don't like steampunk. Well, it's because of the way steampunk was framed in a lot of different things. But you'll probably like my book anyway, because you identify with Star Wars and you identify with high fantasy. So watch that and look for the way that I sort of incorporated those thought processes into a genre, but use the identity of the genre for its own purposes also. So you might like it. Check it out. Thank you for tuning in.